I met the love of my life in first grade. His name was Anthony, and he told anyone that would listen that he was an artist. He was incredibly smart and incredibly talented and incredibly fragile. Everyone ate him alive, except me. I went the opposite route and forced him to be my friend. Anthony thrived with my family. He could expound on art history, art mediums, and art techniques to his heart's desire without fear of repercussion. He got to cuddle our cats and play with our hound, Brummy. He loved animals, but wasn't allowed to have any at home. His mother was too sick to handle the extra obligation. Anthony's artistic talent grew exponentially. By age 11, he could expertly mimic not just any artwork, but any artist. His favorites were Van Gogh and Monet. Because of him, I learned to love art as well, but I gravitated towards surrealism. The iconography especially drew me in. Minotaurs and horses, eerie sun-drenched landscapes, and the uneasy stillness that precedes a freak storm. Due to his mother's degrading health, Anthony practically lived at our house. That's why he was with me and my brother Tom the afternoon when Brummy got snake bit. The only silver lining was that Brummy died quickly. The moment he stopped breathing, Anthony ripped a handful of short, sleek fur and ran into the house. I followed, leaving Tom to sit vigil. Anthony sat and feverishly drew Brummy. Not Brummy as he died, but Brummy as he'd been that morning. Dancing and baying and shoving his nose into the miner's lettuce that blanketed the backyard. I tried to hug Anthony, but he shoved me away.
Get out!
I immediately ran outside and beelined for Tom and Brummy. I pet Brummy's ears for hours, marveling at their softness. The bright afternoon light had given way to the flat, coppery tones I so adored in artwork when Anthony reemerged. He wasn't alone. Something four-legged loped beside him. I squinted disbelievingly. A dog? Already? And how?
Look.
Tom whimpered. Brummy released a joyful bay and ran forward, burying his face in Tom's arms before investigating his own corpse. Anthony watched, white-faced and hollow-eyed, as Brummy turned to me. I shot to my feet. For a long moment, I was sure I would vomit. Then Anthony picked up dead Brummy and carried him past the barbed wire fence that separated our property from the neighbor's acreage, quickly disappearing among the trees. The new Brummy whined and pawed at my ankle. I froze for what felt like forever. Then I sobbed, dropped to my knees, and hugged him. What else could I do? A few months later, Anthony's mother died. Because he had no other relatives, it meant he would be going into foster care. On our last night together, Tom and I sat outside with him. It was a bitterly bright spring evening, not quite dark, with a vast array of stars spiraling across the sky. None of us spoke. After a while, Anthony went inside. He didn't speak to us the next morning, and didn't come home with us after school. We didn't see him for 3 years. Then, on the first day of junior year, there he was, sitting in my English class. We started dating quickly. He was wonderful, attentive, affectionate, and willing to show it. He liked to leave notes for me, the sappy kind, the mundane kind, and later the dirty kind, and even included me in his artistic process.
I want to paint something for you.
He asked one day.
What will it be?
I don't know. He eyed a wood panel thoughtfully. He already looked far away, immersed in the scene filling his mind's eye.
You still like surrealism?
Yeah, I thought briefly. Do a horse and a beach.
What kind of beach? Sandy, rocky, stormy, calm?
Calm and warm, but not tropical. His interpretation was equal parts hideous, hilarious, and beautiful. A rendition of a giant stylized horse peering over the horizon, glaring at a long skyscraper on a rock jutting from the ocean. He captured everything, the saturated colors, surreal style, and that odd, flat quality of the light, that breathlessness before a storm. I loved it, and I loved him. We stayed together through high school and into college without any major incidents. But at the end of sophomore year of college, everything went to hell. Tom committed suicide. My father left shortly after. We found him rotting in a ditch a week later. My mom had a fatal heart attack that August, and suddenly I was alone. Anthony wasn't much help. To cope with his pain, he descended into a frenzy of painting. That year I saw 100 images of my family. I faintly remembered Brummy and dared to hope, but of course, nothing happened. After all, Brummy was a weird memory, a wrong memory, a traumatized memory of Brummy's brush with death. Besides, if Anthony could bring people back to life, wouldn't he have resurrected his mother? I'm not a painter. I'm not an artist of any kind. Without my family, without therapy, and without Anthony, I turned to drugs. This snapped Anthony out of his fugue, or rather, it made him feel like he had to subsume his own grief. He did everything he could. I fought every step of the way. He was patient, even going so far as to organize a camping trip for our anniversary, out in Red Rock Canyon, one of my favorite places on Earth. I made it a disaster. I got drunk and high. I hit him, and finally I blacked out. When I woke, he was sitting on the opposite end of the tent, white-faced and exhausted. I burst into tears. That was the turning point. It was a long, painful road, but by graduation, things were better. That summer, Anthony won a major art contest. His entry had been a painting of me. Not a nice, normal portrait. I was a statue, an effigy, in the center of a cathedral-like cave populated with angels, demons, and children. He got invited to an after-party and insisted on bringing me. It was beautiful, one of those twinkling outdoor courtyards used for wedding receptions. Small tables dotted a garland-strewn patio. The heavy scent of gardenias hung over everything like a perfume, cloying and, in my case, headache-inducing. But I was at a fancy nighttime party with my wonderful and extraordinarily talented boyfriend. A party full of artists and seemingly endless alcohol, so I didn't complain. The headache and the flower perfume blended with a healthy champagne buzz, turning everyone around me into beautiful, rosy creatures. The courtyard glowed gold and green. Even the moths were pretty, green, blue, and purple, like butterflies.
You've entered many competitions, haven't you?
The voice, low and beautifully cadenced, roused me. I realized I'd been dozing. Anthony had his arm around me. My head rested on his shoulder. His skin scent mellowed the cloying gardenia perfume. I nestled in closer, pretending to be asleep.
Yeah.
He said.
For years. Long before I had any business entering anything.
The voice gave a bell-like laugh.
That isn't entirely true.
How would you know?
He'd attempted a light tone, but it came out strained.
I've handled many contests and exhibitions. You could say I'm a scout.
A long pause, filled with laughter and the crystalline clatter of glasses.
I invited you because I saw it move.
Anthony tensed. His heart raced under my ear, exactly like a drum.
I've noticed the subject of all your exceptional works happen to be present company. May I ask?
Anthony's throat clicked. The man laughed.
Don't be afraid.
I heard the smile in that voice, sharp and predatory.
I own a school for people like you.
I don't have any money, so...
I wouldn't make you pay.
A brief, frosty silence slowly leached the magic out of the night.
I'll be in touch.
I left Anthony to his thoughts for exactly 30 seconds, then rose. What was he talking about? I was tipsy and drowsy, far louder than I intended. Across the courtyard, a tall man turned, eyes flaring yellow under the twinkling lights.
I don't know,
he muttered. The man watched us. In my sleepy, buzzed haze, his eyes looked awful, flat and reflective, like a freshly dead animal. Anthony tugged my sleeve.
Let's go. This place is crawling with freaks.
He took me home and put me to bed. I fell asleep and dreamed of gardenias. Anthony broke up with me the next day and never spoke to me again. I was devastated, even more so when I heard from friends that he'd accepted a spot at an art conservatory in Europe. It took 3 years for light to creep back into my world. And then, just as I was starting to heal, Anthony sent me a postcard. I recognized his scrawl immediately. Seeing it caused a painful combination of ecstasy and an emotional sucker punch. At first, I thought he'd copied my address down twice, but no. The second address was a place all the way out in Boron. Underneath, he'd written,
"You will understand."
Hope coursed through me. Had he come back? Had he come back to me? For me? I drove out immediately. I was too excited to think, But by the time I pulled up to a dilapidated little ruin at the base of a mining hill, doubt tempered the joy. The ruin had 2 levels. At the back was an opening to a half-collapsed mine shaft, yawing open like a black portal. I shuddered and checked the floor. Nothing but garbage, sand, and bugs. I went downstairs and immediately realized it was full of Anthony's work. I recognized a few. That ridiculous quasi-surrealistic horse painting half covered with cheesecloth. My effigy self being worshipped by supernatural creatures. Drawings of mermaids, pastel frenzies of otherworldly landscapes. But most were unfamiliar, and all of them were depictions of me. It was like being in an unusually sophisticated funhouse. Instead of distorted mirrors, artwork from all mediums, perspectives, and techniques. Melancholy swept over me, settling into my bones like lead. I sat, narrowly missing a glistening Jerusalem cricket. If he loved me enough to recreate me so many times, if he loved me enough to keep all of it, why did he leave? Warm tears fell onto my hands. I wept until long after nightfall. Stars glittered through the dilapidated floor and missing roof, cold and distant. I needed to leave, but couldn't. This was the closest I'd been to him in years, the closest I might ever be again. After a while, I searched the room. Footprints, a note, anything to indicate that he'd been here recently. I pulled a sheet off the wall and froze. It was another painting of me. I was crumpled against an earthen wall, surrounded by garbage. I was white and broken, bruisey and sunken. No doubt about it, dead and rotting, with a collapsed eye and colorless lips that were shrinking over my teeth, which were shattered. Suddenly, I noticed a piece of paper wedged in the corner of the frame. I fished it out, brittle and weather-stained, covered in Anthony's handwriting.
Check the mine.
My skin contracted and crawled. I looked at the painting again, at my dead body and dirt walls. In the background, I saw the distinctive shape of a timber support. I turned on my cell phone flashlight and climbed upstairs. The shaft spilled shadows thick as velvet. In trembling light, they looked alive. I drew a deep breath and stepped inside. Bugs skittered past, throwing nightmarish shadows that stretched nearly as tall as me. Dry, slippery earth and a steep incline made it hard to walk. The temperature dropped with every step. Before long, I was shivering. After nearly an hour, an earthen wall came into view. To the left, I saw another dark shaft radiating more moving shadows. Directly before me stood piles of trash rock, old wood, and plastic sheeting. And there, wrapped in dust-caked sheeting, I forced myself forward, kicking rocks and garbage out of the way, and shone the light directly at the sheeting. It was thick and scratched, but through the layers I could discern a figure. My hands shook wildly as I unwrapped it. Tears burned and fell as I pulled back the final layer. It was me, desiccated and broken, with papery skin and a shattered horror where teeth should have been. My face, my nose, my hair, even my tattoo, a small, grinning stitch with the Ohana quote. Anthony had a matching one. We'd gotten them together. I pawed frantically through the dusty wrapping and found another note.
You killed yourself on the camping trip. I brought you back. I tried with my mom, your parents, and Tom, but couldn't do it. I didn't know at the time, but there's a time limit. That's why it worked with Brummy. I waited too long with our families, but I got you immediately. I tried to see you so many times, but they always catch me. I can still leave notes at least. Please leave one for me if you can. I love you.
I shoved the note into my pocket and left without writing a note. What was the point? I'm not really alive. I saw my own dead body. How can I be anything but a facsimile? Anthony didn't bring his lover back to life. He artworked a new one into being. Pygmalion reborn. But a few weeks ago, pain descended like an avalanche and I returned to the mine. Anthony's artwork was gone. In its place was a single note.
They found out.
I wrote a note. I'm sorry. I was just scared. I love you. I left it on the floor and went home. I went back a month ago. The note still lay in the corner, covered in dust. Of course, his school found out. He never got to come back. He never saw the note, and he never will. I lost my chance. But when I got home today, I found a package on my doorstep, long and flat, wrapped in several layers of cardboard, bubble wrap, and cheesecloth. It was a painting. When I saw the stupid giant horse glaring over the horizon, I burst into tears. Taped on the back was a note.
I'm sorry.